So we'll actually start. We have almost a full room. Good evening. Hello, everyone. A very, very special good evening to all of you here. Hope everyone is doing good and managing your busy. From the last session, we had resilience techniques and stress management for entrepreneurs and leaders. On behalf of Thai Dubai, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome each of you today to today's session. And before the session starts, I do a little introduction speech to the event and to talk about Thai Dubai, especially for the ones that don't know. And guess what? I'm obviously asked ChatGPT for my introduction today. So I'm just going to follow what ChatGPT said. AI, artificial intelligence, the buzzword, the tip of the iceberg, today's topic. It is definitely a groundbreaking development that is revolutionizing the way we interact with technology and is transforming the landscape for entrepreneurs and businesses. The impact of this cannot be overstated. It opens up a plethora of opportunities by enabling new and innovative ways to interact with customers, automate processes, generate valuable insights, provide personalized recommendations, offer real-time one-to-one assistance, etc., etc. And all of this is while maintaining a human-like experience. Repetitive tasks, time-consuming tasks, streamlining data, so much, much more that is in the coming. I'm also super proud to be a resident of Dubai for over 23 years and to state that Diva was the first global entity to integrate ChatGPT into their business. Tech is in our DNA, people. And it's absolutely amazing that they did this so quickly as early as February. I really don't want to take any more time on the topic. Before we start, a little about Thai Dubai. In a nutshell, Thai is an organization that started as a conversation in Silicon Valley over 30 years back. Now it's turned into more than 57 chapters in 14 countries. So how Thai functions is on 5 main pillars, namely mentoring, networking, education, funding, and incubation. While Thai has a global reach, we make sure each chapter gets to focus on the local ecosystem. There are some great programs which we run for all kinds of entrepreneurs here across the MENA. There's a mentorship program, extremely beneficial for companies that are looking for support from seasoned and successful entrepreneurs who help you navigate your startup journey better. We have the Thai University program, which we just concluded. We had our Emirati winner fly all the way to Silicon Valley and pitch in person. A great experience when you're a university student to interact with over 40 other students from across the globe. The other one is the Thai Women MENA program, where we engage and work with amazing women entrepreneurs across the MENA. The program focuses on women-led or co-led companies. As I was saying, Thai Dubai is the Middle East chapter and based out of Dubai Internet City and has been around for over 20 years now. The easiest way to be a part of this community and get to know about all the events and programs is by liking us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Everywhere we are Thai Dubai on the social media handles. A very special thank you to all the charter members of Thai Dubai, especially the ones who are here today, and to all the board members who make all the amazing in the chapter happen for the entire MENA region. Moving on to today's evening panel, I'm more than pleased to introduce you to our moderator for today, our charter member and managing director for Accenture, Bashar Kilani. A seasoned executive, an advisory board member with a track record of engaging multiple markets, leadership positions, sales, marketing, consulting, a digital specialist. Bashar, I leave the floor to you and the rest of the panelists to make today evening both informative and exciting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great. Really happy to be today with you in this great event to talk about artificial intelligence. And I think we've come a long way. Let me give you a personal story on artificial intelligence. I started with artificial intelligence at the university back in '95, where I wrote a model to recognize signatures. And you train it, it's very narrow AI, but it was very focused. And in '95, All banks had checks and signatures, and that was a tedious process. So to have an algorithm that recognizes with certain degree of certainty whether your signature matches the real one was a big improvement in productivity at that time. I was then lucky to join IBM, and IBM worked on a program called Deep Blue, which was a chess playing computer. And it won against Garry Kasparov, who at that time was the global chess champion. And of course, chess is a very structured game. You have very certain moves, and you can imagine what the counter moves will be from your opponent, and you can quickly see how you can actually come up with a winning strategy. And we hosted Garry Kasparov a few years later in Dubai, and we spoke to him, how can a computer win against you? And he said, as a human, I'm maybe looking at 5 or 6 potential possibilities and maybe 2, 3 steps ahead. I don't have the capability to look that far ahead. While Deep Blue was doing kind of 52 times 200 and just doing the maths, and it had the advantage of just being more effective and efficient in this narrow specific thing, yeah? But we were talking about structured data and structured moves. Fast forward maybe 15 years later, and you can see how long it takes, yeah? IBM worked on a program called Watson that played Jeopardy. And Jeopardy is unstructured data. So you see, I moved from a very narrow discipline to a strong discipline in structured data into something that is unstructured. And the reason IBM chose to play Jeopardy, because technology at that time was very good in understanding natural language, but not really generating natural language. So Jeopardy, Watson would understand the language, the question, and come up with an answer of one word. What's the capital of France? Paris. Who's the first person on the moon? Neil Armstrong. So you were able to give an answer but not generate content. And if you see all the chatbots that came out after Watson, they were intent-based. So you will understand the natural language, but you have them programmed on certain intents, 100, 200, and whether you answer with one word or one sentence or one paragraph or gives you a link to follow, it was very limiting, but it was a huge step forward. Now recently, we got into a new term called generative AI. And that was only possible because of cloud computing. Now we have huge compute power that can handle these kind of large data, and we've got an explosion in data. And computers now are able to generate content, essays, answers, and they are very different in terms of communicating with people. It's human-like communication. And that's where this thing that we all were kind of hit with last November is transformative. We now have capability to generate content, essays, pictures, movies, presentations, which we didn't have before. And that's an inflection point. It took, in my career, maybe 30 years to get there, yeah? But it is there. And Bill Gates calls it the iPhone moment for AI. Because again, we've gone through a number of transformations over the last few years. First, computers used to have all these applications on their systems, and you had to interact with them through green screens. Then came the internet, and we webified everything. We put a web browser in front of every application, and we were able to communicate with that. The iPhone came in 2007, and this was a turning moment because we started to put all our compute power on mobile phones, and we started to have the apps. So we appified everything. So if I say before that we were webifying everything, now we appified everything. We are now at a point where we will use generative AI to communicate with these computer technologies. We will use natural language, and we will be able to transform our technology and interactions once again. So we're really looking at a very transformative environment ahead of us. So Bill Gates calls it the iPhone moment, or AI becoming mature. And for the first time, you have a computer that can pass a biology test or an economics test or things like that. We're still at the early days, but we are seeing something big happening. Now, the story doesn't become complete and comprehensive if we don't have the complete view. This is not just generative AI. Generative AI is here because of cloud computing. Generative AI is here because of big data and analytics. Generative AI is here because of cybersecurity. Generative AI is here because of digital twins. Generative AI completes the overall picture that we have, and that transforms the way we are going to do business and we're going to work and interact in the future. I'm very excited to have my friend Abu Khalid Abdullah Al-Jaziri from DIWA, who is maybe the first entity, at least in my knowledge, that has actually started this journey of transforming the way you interact with technology using generative AI. So, Abu Khalid, introduce yourself to us, and then tell us a little bit about how you've used in DIWA generative AI.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good evening. My name is Abdullah Al-Jaziri. I'm a senior manager of the Digital Disruption Department within DIWA, Innovation and the Future Division. So I started my journey, actually, I studied civil engineering. I don't come from an IT background. I moved into the Emirates Aluminium, then moved into Mohammed Barashid Space Center, so the space sector. And then I came into DIWA, into the Innovation and the Future, and I was like, innovation is nice. I would love to work into areas that start exploring the future and bringing them here now, just like the 10X initiative. And moving from there, I started in digital asset management, and that's where Bukarim, Mr. Bashar, just spoke about data and how can you take insightful actions by using data. Now, all of that, when we speak about digital asset management, it's about non-tangible assets that are of great value and impactful decision-making that affects organizations, affects P&L, affects customer experience, affects cybersecurity and all the other technology stack. So now when we started seeing that AI is a big player in this field, and DIWA has been adopting AI since 2017, I started looking at artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence with ChatGPT at the first emergent state, and now Google, Amazon, and all other LLMs are competing in this market. And this is where we as DIWA started adopting this technology. Now, I would maybe like to tell you more about DIWA to understand why DIWA is today an early adopter at the forefront and looking at technology as a vehicle, but not the destination to reach their requirements or needs. Now, DIWA is the lifeline of Dubai in many ways, and I believe if you're a resident of Dubai, you're always interacting with DIWA. You have to pay your bills, but why do you do that? And that's true. Why do you do that? Electricity and water are important. Hospitals, schools, home, food, everything you need is basically a huge dependency on DIWA. Now, if this is a huge dependency for everybody that's living here, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that this is the best that the world can provide. And this is why Dubai is a brand, and DIWA has to be at the same level of Dubai as a brand. Now, DIWA is a globally leading, sustainable, innovative corporation, and it's committed to achieving net zero by 2050. And when we say achieving net zero by 2050, that means there is also the digital space that empowers the sustainability space. And this is where DIWA, with the 10X initiative launched by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed Barashid Al Maktoum, launched its digital subsidiaries, Digital DIWA, Moro, InfraX, and Digital DIWA, Moro, InfraX, and DigitalX. And by doing so, it empowered us actually to work with the market. And this is where we met Mr. Bashar even before Digital DIWA, but now we work with Accenture, we work with IBM before, and many companies and partners. But as Mr. Bashar said, now when you speak about generative AI, you look at the person that the company is, that's representing the company. And this is where Mr. Marwan always says, Accenture is an amazing company, and this is why they chose Bashar. And we've been working with Bashar since IBM. And people drive companies. And this is why decision-making in people is important. Today, I would love to speak about the use cases that we did at DIWA, how valuable they were, what did they impact from a customer perspective, what did they impact from an employee perspective, and what are the areas that we are either exploring within pilot or we've released for the full entity. Some areas are on beta, some areas are well developed. Please let me know when would you like me to speak about that.
Now is a good
Now is a good time.
I think you already shared on social media the updated app,
Yes,
which uses ChatGPT, and I think that's first of a kind.
definitely.
So that's one element. The other element is, of course, how you manage all the assets, the digital assets and the data. So it's a good point.
Good. Okay, so now when we speak about ChatGPT and DIWA's adoption to ChatGPT, we initially started with just, I believe, like everyone here started, learning about promptology and how do we make sure that ChatGPT is actually providing the right answers for my questions and addressing my needs in a proper manner, does not hallucinate. Before the emergence of Bing showing the links, before Google Bard saying Google it, before that we were looking at it and trying to take the human factor to check the quality of that output. Does it align with my needs? So your good name again?
Cicely.
So basically Cicely just now said that she uses ChatGPT to create that introduction, but it resounds with her. It's something that she believes in, and that's why she used that prompt to bring in something that she would want to say in a better way. And this is how our customer happiness is important for us. So ChatGPT enhanced our Ramas chatbot for our consumer services, where before it was already an AI chatbot launched on Microsoft Lewis. Now, enhancing it to move further and make that experience better, we brought in ChatGPT, we integrated with it in order for that experience to be more seamless and for the customer to be able to get the right questions answered with the way that he would like to ask these questions and the way that he would like them to be answered. And this is how we implemented it. We went into a very fast approach towards that, and we said, we understand there is security issues. We understand that there are AI ethics. We understand that there is when we speak about Dan, do anything now, the jailbreak way. So we know that these challenges are there, but with every technology this happens. So that does not mean we will not adopt technology. And that's why we have in Dubai, I was speaking to somebody here, I don't see him now. Yes, we were speaking about the regulations lab. So in Dubai, every technology starts as an innovation. So it's an idea. So it was not implemented. The innovation, if you speak about it as a hype cycle, goes into what the peak of inflated expectations. And this is where people start speaking about it a lot. And it's like a balloon that's going to burst. And this is where the balloon gets tested, whether is it going to fly or is it going to burst. And once you start testing this technology, is where you know what works and what doesn't. And with the Regulations Lab and Supreme Legislation Council is where we do that in a sandbox environment. If it doesn't work, sure, stop. If it works, enhance. And this is what we did with our Ramas on our website first, and then 5th of May on our mobile app. Now, if we look at it internally, okay, what did we do for our employees? Now there is the general day-to-day things that everybody is doing that does not need any integration, so it's integrationless. You're using ChatGPT directly or any other large language model for your needs, whether it's OpenAI, whether it's Google, whether it's AutoGPT or applications like GodMode or Agent GPT that keep reprompting themselves. So internally, we use that for marketing. And I spoke about the government services. And for government services, sorry, I'm going to go one step back, is where we started looking at the consumer persona first. Because we have a builder persona, we have a partner persona. So we said, let's perfect the consumer persona, launch it fast, learn fast, fail fast. and get feedback from the customers through the teach mode that we have, where they start giving us thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down. And this is where we start zooming in. Okay, maybe our website was not done properly from a search engine optimization for web crawling, for the large language model. And this is where we started optimizing it internally with our quality testing, then launched it for beta, and this is where we'll move next to our next personas. Now, internally, we have a lot of demand as innovation in the future in DIWA, and we're a strong believer in digital for everything. All our divisions are adopting digital for the value as a vehicle, not as a destination. And this is where we saw that, okay, now we did an awareness session. People understand that this is valuable. It can change their business. It can change the value that they provide and the time in which they action this value that they want to provide, whether it's something from operational perspective or administration perspective. And that's what we brought in promptology. Then we said, okay, let's look at use cases that use public data to serve private data. Instead of giving it private data, then compromising on security. And this is where we said, okay, I am in innovation in the future. I have the digital disruption department. We're in charge of providing technology to all the divisions, and we have a business relationship manager. And they come in with their demands. And I have a huge technology stack in DIWA for the many applications that we have. And the first thing that usually happens when we go through our collaborative demand management, we start understanding, okay, what's his need, the division or the business, and how do we address that? In many cases, and this is part of it, asset management, people go to market to get this technology, and there is cost. There's negotiation needed. There is an RFP that needs to be floated. There is a PTC1, PTC2, and I can do RFPs now much better, bridge the gap between business and the technology provider. I can start looking internally because people purchase certain tools for certain departments for certain needs. But guess what happens? Many product companies provide many features that that person doesn't need, but it's a byproduct. But for my colleague, that's his primary need. Now, how do I make ChatGPT provide me that? So I had an idea of something called digital feature management. And it was not from an asset management to the level of features that each single technology provider from each single product provides as a feature with a clear description that I can search into to provide the business with their needs with our internal assets for proper software asset management. And I tried doing that. It had a lot of communication needs. And it was really, I was like, maybe God was pushing this because it's impossible, and ChatGPT now came for the best time to do it. And we prompted ChatGPT. A lot of challenges came. Too many requests, server down. Then we started breaking them down into different people to do it. How much time do I have? Sorry. Yeah. Different people to start segregating the amount of tools we have. And we had thousands. So we said, okay, this doesn't seem like it's working. What do we do? And this is where we started checking, okay, let's create a code that prompts all of these. And let's use the paid version on Azure OpenAI with Microsoft. So it keeps running non-stop. I do not need to use resources. And it did that in 30 hours, non-stop. Now, if I recalculated how much that would have taken me as an organization if generative AI was not there, if the communication was needed to be done from the digital asset management lead to the product managers, to the product owners, to the technology providers, and the uniformity of all the answers that needed to be there was impossible. And from time perspective, saying that there are no challenges, emails, population, data cleansing, that would have taken me 4,000, 5,000 hours. This is what we speculated. I cannot say that's spot on, but 30 hours is amazing. And we got 260,000 rows of data, 10 million words that we now have free access to. And we understand that we have all these applications. Why? Because they're on our software asset management tool. What we do is we just confirm whether we've purchased the product from our software asset management tool. And this is where we start improving the quality of this data. Once we start searching, we understand, okay, we have these tools, these manufacturers, they have these products, and we have a Gartner subscription. So let's look at them from a Magic Quadrant perspective and use our internal assets and increase the optimization. Now, negotiation. We have a renewal with Accenture. So So Accenture is a consultancy firm. They're not a technology selling products. Maybe they do, but we've not engaged in that. So we have many products, and they have a negotiation with the product for renewal of license or annual maintenance contract. And from a negotiation perspective, now I understand that I have 10 tools that provide the same features that were before in different silos, different teams, and were not connected. Today they're connected, and they can prompt ChatGPT, and they can look at their evaluation, and then I can negotiate against that. So there is also the negotiation aspect. There are many use cases that I would love to speak about, actually, and I can keep going because we've really been pushing the boundaries in this area. And I would love to.
We are here to listen to you. Okay. Everybody is excited because I think the messages are very clear. With this generative AI, we're going to be 30% more productive and efficient. And these are real examples from procurement, from asset management, from analytics, from data. This is how an organization and an enterprise is actually using this technology to be more effective and more efficient. Also, if you have a chance, go to Rammas and test the interaction. Of course, I wouldn't assume from day one it has all the impacts in it, but it's learning. Every time you interact with it, it becomes better. And we're moving away from the intent-based environment where they had predefined intents to something that's much more human-like, and that would have a direct impact on customer service. So if you have other use cases, everybody here is very thirsty and hungry to hear more about these things. And also the learning aspects, when it breaks down, how long it takes to get the data, once you build these models, what do you do with them? Because these are real assets that you can actually use to drive efficiency and productivity.
Sure. So we have also many other use cases. Inshallah, I will speak about them since the time is sufficient. Now, when we speak about the ChatGPT and the chatbot that we built, do we always want the chatbot to interact with the consumer? Sometimes the consumer is frustrated. Maybe the chatbot has reached a stage where the data that it's been trained on and the large language model backend that it has does not provide that answer, or the person is in grave need to reach an agent. Not because of the chatbot's functionality, which could be a reason, but I'm just saying that that's a possibility. So how do you do the transition between bot to agent and agent back to bot? And what is the rule-based mechanism for you to move from that chatbot to different teams based on the challenge that's there to ensure that routing is done correctly? Because now, before you had call centers. Now you're speaking to a chatbot, understanding what the issue is, if he's frustrated from point A, B, or C, and who will be addressing it inside the organization. So this is one aspect which we've not yet launched, but it's in our pipeline for us to have that integration with the working team, and that's why we kept Rammas 1.0 and Rammas 2.0. And we have a Hayak service where you go to the agent. But that will be more seamless, more fluid later. Now, if we speak about marketing, DEWA launched its first AI avatar. And using a technology that now everybody knows, Synthesia. So Synthesia is a company that provides AI avatars in 120 languages. It is used for that AI avatar aspect. We pay a lot of money for marketing, for filming, for creating the dialogue, for ensuring that the content is correct, and for creativity. So why should we keep doing it conventionally? She did it perfectly. Let me do the introduction. If it resounds with me, that represents me. So the same thing is going to be happening for organizations. And this is where we used AI avatars. I will no longer start filming people. I will need, if it's an organization member that's already representing DEWA, we'll use a green screen, record him and use him as an AI avatar, and every time we release something, we get his approval. But he does not need to take his time, leave the office, go for filming, come back. And what about the content? We use ChatGPT to create the dialogue for us. And this is a transformational jump, believe me, when we speak about marketing. All the digital channels are basically having teams that are doing that. And many people believe, oh, that's going to take my job. No, that's going to just make you do much more than what you used to do I'm not going to say that stress levels will increase or the time that you're working will decrease. They might need more from you, but you can provide more now. So this is where people need to shake hands with technology instead of pushing away against technology and believing, no, this is going to take my place. This is the mentality of the people that start losing their place because there is someone else that understands and says, yes, I know that this technology is of value and I can add more value to the organization with the technology. And this is why it is vehicle. He is the one adding the value, it is the vehicle. And the last thing that I would like to speak about, or
Yeah, go ahead.
so when we speak about technology being a vehicle, and this is something that many people say that is metaverse winter. And I want to say the metaverse here for one specific reason, that I am happy, extremely happy, that the generative AI came now and is taking the media by storm, taking the organization by storm, and the metaverse is now no longer on people's tongues. Not because the metaverse is not the right solution. It's because now the metaverse will be more fluid because all the data that I'm training, the website that you guys inshallah will come and test and give me thumbs up, thumbs down, will be the foundational data that my AI avatar in the metaverse in my customer happiness centers will be responding with through the Whisper APIs and through the human voice. So it's just enhancing all of that. And just as Mr. Bukarim Bashar said, his journey was with data, when it was not mature, the amount of data was not big, the computers were not strong enough. Same as with the metaverse, the hardware today is not an everyday carry. And with generative AI and the reduction in size, wearing your glasses day in, day out, I believe it will be your daily driver. So thank you, and I'm here for any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. I think this is a great story from enterprise. And we're a startup community and entrepreneurs. So I'd like to invite Priya and Dr. Talal. Priya, please join us here. And Dr. Talal. No, let's, okay. So, great story on productivity and effectiveness and where to use the technology in the enterprise. But I've got really two great stories here. And Priya, if your mic is working, introduce yourself.
Yes, it does.
And tell us about the large language model that you've developed that's not ChatGPT.
Yes.
So this is a competition to ChatGPT. So please
Inshallah.
give us a little bit of a background.
Yeah, so I'm Priya. I'm the founder of Zwag.ai. Yes, we were the ChatGPT of 2022, beginning of 2022. So I'm incubated here, Zwag.ai is incubated here at In5. So when I pitched Zwag to In5, I said that think of it like WhatsApp, but does what Google does. And our tagline was, don't just Google it, Zwag it. So you understand what we were trying to build, right? So we call ourselves GCC's first conversational AI-driven social app. So we are bringing together the best of artificial intelligence, AI, and HI, human intelligence, by building, look at it as a recommendation chatbot, right? So it will help you and your friends and family in a very social app kind of a concept, where you can find the right products, what you're looking for, look for a movie based on genre, and then you don't have to go to YouTube to look for your, watch the trailer. You don't have to go to the merchant site to book the ticket. Everything, the movie Zini will help you do that. Then there is a gamer Zini, which is like allows you to find gaming communities, which will allow you to stream your Twitch, gamer streamers, stream into the app itself. So we are kind of, now what sets us apart is obviously our LLM, and we are saying that search doesn't get more local than what we can do. You can call us your local local AI, basically. I was listening to Sir when he was saying that, how it was breaking down, the volume ChatGPT would break down and so on and so forth. I was thinking that is where the beauty of very local and smaller LLMs, because obviously they were consumers are not looking at generating poems and writing codes and stuff, right? So that is where the beauty of smaller LLMs and more native LLMs come into play. Now, why did we have to build one? One is because we started creating Zwag long before ChatGPT was commercially available and the technology was commercially available. We had to build everything from scratch. We did our own crawlers, analyzers, and things like that. And we were never in ChatGPT's space at all. We were not meant to answer such questions. Ours was very specific to e-commerce and jobs and everything that the Gen Zers and the young millennials would search for. And they can find specific information, not like what Google was providing at that point, right? Multiple links and a lot of sponsored content. So we have multiple zines. So our app is not launched yet, but our social app, it's not just one zine, it's not just one chatbot, there are multiple chatbots. So for shopping, you'll have a shopping zine, movie zine. For health, you'll have another zine. So the language that the zine avatar itself speaks had to be different. So we needed more leaner, trainable data sets and data models. Also, we have a B2B segment, wherein we wanted much specific leaner models and not a general purpose LLM. So for our purpose, OpenAI's ChatGPT wasn't enough. We had to develop something of our own. And plus, when we launched our MVP, and it was 2 weeks after that ChatGPT came in, and then we had the pressure of integrating ChatGPT as well, because until then, I was trying to tell people that, traditional search doesn't work. You need more conversational search. And this is the app that you need to use to do that. And then once we launched the MVP and ChatGPT came, people were asking me, so does it do what ChatGPT does? And I was like, I've been trying to tell you for 1 year that this is a real use case. And I tell them it can do more than what ChatGPT does at this point, right? It gives you images, it gives you the trailers, you can book, it gives you links, references, everything. It's connected to the internet real time. Verified links and stuff like that. So yes, we built that. And then initially, if you look at the app, only had 2 options: shopping, movies, celebration ideas. But then people put a pressure on us and asked, can it do what ChatGPT does? So very reluctantly, I put an ask me anything option, which is and we pinged ChatGPT, right? And for 3 weeks, we suffered a lot initially because, ChatGPT was a beta version, right? And then you cannot build a complex product like what we are building on a beta version of anything. So that itself, they were also learning. And then we had the unavailability of the infrastructure that they were building, and our requests would time out, so on and so forth, right? And now, because the GPU costs are also falling, we are able to afford that. I have a tech partner based in the US, so we are able to afford GPUs. We have built in, now, and I talk about the LLM, we are not building anything from scratch, because the first thing when people hear that, okay, Zwag has built an LLM, oh my God, there must be a rich startup with millions of dollars in funding. No, I was bootstrapping until very recently. I have an angel investor coming in now. But no, it doesn't cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars every month because we didn't start anything from scratch. So that's also possible, I'm telling you. It is possible. It's a myth that you cannot, you'll need millions to build an LLM. It will, when it scales, it will cost you. But we have used early access of Meta's Llama. We have used Apache's GPT for all. And we have, because I said, we are your local AI, we have scraped and stored the data of almost every local Reddit streams, news sites, government sites, whatever would be available. We've done that as well. And in Zwag, there is a government zine that we are building as well to provide specific answers to, how to get visas, how to fill the forms, so on and so forth. Very authentic information. So so that's the story of Zwag so far and of the LLM that we have built.
Great story, and I'm very proud it's coming out of Dubai. So someone somewhere would say we had a very advanced LLM in Dubai that's really stable, and And you mentioned last time you have a B2B business model and a B2C business model, so quite an advanced engagement there. Talking about stories and generative stories, here is another startup, again, very proud to have it in Dubai. Dr. Talal, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a story?
Sure. I mean, what better way to start with a story when your company's name is Storybox? Yeah. So, okay. So over here, I'm in two roles. So I'm a professor in AI and robotics at Heriot-Watt University, and I'm also a co-founder at Storybox, which is the startup incorporated at N5. And the premise of our app basically started with one of my co-founders when his daughter came and asked him, "Can I have a story of a whale doing a certain kind of a thing?" And just when he was going to sleep, he was just too tired with that aspect. And he was like, I can't think of a story right now. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow and all that stuff. So, and that's when, since he was doing AI with a couple of his own peers, my students, and now my partners, we came up with a plan like, okay, can we do this using AI, since all of us are coming from that background? And so that started our quest, the journey into this space of generative AI. But at that time, there was nothing called as ChatGPT. We had GPT. Okay, so we initially started off thinking like, okay, what if AI could help us with generating stories? And initially, when we started off trying that out, it started generating very sadistic stories, right? Or a very, the stories were about a mother and child, and then it went to a dog. All of a sudden, it started becoming, and the dog was killed later on. So it's just completely butchered the whole topic.
There is a market for that.
Yes. Yeah, but that was not the actual intent of generating a story. We are planning to have these stories for kids between 3 to 9 years old, and we don't want to put them in front of these stories. I mean, not my kids, or not even your kids. Yeah, I mean, like, exactly. All right. So, so then we started creating our own stuff, right? So we that made us think, like, it's not only AI as such we could just use. We need to always have a human in the loop whenever we design a product around humans. Because at the end of the day, these things are going to be used by people, right? And like you said, Abdullah, that you had a test case and you wanted to check, you had a beta version, and you really tested it whether the customer wanted that particular solution or that particular way of answering. Even the way of answering, the tonality, the kind of answer, it all matters, right? And all these could be tuned, right? So, of course, when you get all these LLM models, you can actually do different kinds of embeddings, and you could do different kind of, everything depends on the data, basically, you're training it on. And as you said, having access to the cloud and the big data space we are in right now is basically the right cooking pot for all these applications to come out, right? So, long story short, we started creating our own stories. We started generating, and we had this process of hiring authors who would create parts of the stories, and we used to use the GPT at that time, which was GPT-3, to just ensure the grammar was correct. Yeah. And that's what we did, right? But then eventually we came to a point where in November, when ChatGPT was thrown out to the world, and within a couple of days it got millions of users. I think it was 100 million, was it? In 2-3 days, it actually got that number of people, and that basically gave an awareness to the people, right? Okay, such a thing exists. Why don't we use such things on our app, right? So, in terms of our progress, if I talk about our startup journey, we were, let's say, going at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour for our startup, developing all this thing, creating the right contacts, getting in touch with the authors, getting in touch with some graphic designers. And then with the advent of accessibility to ChatGPT, which is $20 for a plus package, we just started generating stories at a much, much faster rate. So you said 30%, but I think our productivity jumped by more than 200%.
Because you're in the intellectual space. Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah, and of course, and it's an intellectual space where we could have proper checks, safety checks. I mean, because we are in a small space of children's stories, we know what works, what doesn't work.
The governance
Yeah,
is
the
easier.
governance becomes much more easier and simpler to manage those aspects. And remember, all these LLM models were made by people, or tested by people. So there were safety engineers who actually said, no, wait, this answer is correct, and this answer was not correct. They did this by reinforcement learning on these LLM models. So there's always people, don't think like it was done, just automatically harvested some data and you got these models running out. So, and that's what we did. And that world actually went more crazier, right? So it's not only text that can be generated, it's images, right? And kids like images, right? Especially if it's in a cartoon style.
Images and videos.
Images,
yes.
videos. So we have, let's say, a minimum, I won't say minimum viable product yet, but we have a minimum viable experience. An app ready right now if any one of you are interested to see that after this session. But the idea is that we take a child's drawing, their imagination, and see from that drawing, can we create a story which matches with the parent's value. If the parent's value is about punctuality, good manners, sharing, caring, the app will do that, right? But we have people who understand what kind of stories, what should be the structure. We follow a particular format. There's an Oxford reading level for kids that says that picture should be this much, this many sentences should be there in a story. This should be the type of the story. This should be the kind of stories that are there. So we did a lot of research from that background, but now we do have something that we could say, we are in our progressing in our startup journey.
Great stories. So I learned 3 things about artificial intelligence, and maybe you need to memorize them. Scale. So if you have a system, you can scale it. We've seen Deep Blue, it scales the chess story and it wins against the human. We've seen the scale with Priya. We've seen the scale in Diwa, just in numbers and compared to what the human brain and the human system is able to manage. And we've seen scale here as well, 200% or something. So scale is one thing. Scope. Once you've got that engine that scales, you can actually add scope to it. So there's nothing preventing us here from getting Arabic stories, or Hindu stories, or Urdu stories, or French stories, or German stories. You have the engine, you have the ingredients, and you increase the scope. And now we're focusing on children between 3 and 9. We can go to other aspects. We can start to write movies. We can start to be script writers. You can add scope as much as you want. So scale, scope, and the last thing is these systems learn. So every time there's a new story, every time Priya adds a new feature to what you can do in Dubai, which restaurant you can visit, which movie you can see, which government entity you want to deal with, the system learns and becomes better. Every time you go to Rammas, you have a conversation with Rammas, it becomes better. So these 3 fundamental things in AI, scale, scope, and learning, is what's going to be the essence of the transformation that we're looking at. The other important point, which I think we all now need to be aware of, is responsible AI. And I wanted to have the discussion on Storybox. Because here is where you are talking to children 3 to 9 years of age, and you have to make sure the values that you're communicating in these stories are in line with your values and the values that you would like to teach them. And of course, I understand there are cultural differences, there are different backgrounds, different communities, and everybody really would like to maybe customize this to include their values and traditions included into this. So you're kind of increasing the scope as you scale. But there's a lot of responsibility here. And we've heard here, we've got humans who are actually doing this. Yeah? In DIWA, we've got humans who are actually, at the end of the day, responsible for the outcome. We talked to Priya, and it's all about, you want to make sure that the recommendation you give, the advice that you give, your B2B story, your B2C story is responsible. Is
not
ethical.
just that. That's why it is a social app, right? Wherein we are bringing, I said AI plus HR, human intelligence. So if the chatbot says, if Zini says that, this restaurant in Karaba has great vibes, and then your friend is saying, by the way, I went there, it isn't that great.
Yeah.
And then the Zini learns, and next time it will not recommend the place.
I don't like the term artificial intelligence, although I've spent now 25 years in this space. I'd like to call it augmented intelligence, because it augments our intelligence as humans. It makes me a better doctor, it makes me a better manager, it makes me a better lawyer, it makes me a better entrepreneur, it makes me a better person. I like to use the word augmented intelligence. So with these thoughts, we've got 15 minutes, so we start on time, we finish on time, to have questions to this wonderful audience that we have here. We start with the lady.
It's a very simple question, because obviously with all of this, the skill sets will have to be different when people are dealing with it. How are these jobs, what are these new jobs going to look like? That's what I want to know. And how would you train them?
So,
Tough question, Salah. It's a tough question because many of the jobs currently today need to change the way that they're working, and people that are still not on job, for example, students, need to change the areas that they're studying, because now, as Abu Karim said, augmented intelligence, artificial intelligence. Okay, if it's going to be augmented intelligence on whatever I have today, what is it that augmentation will add to which type of intelligence and make it exponentially better? Whereas that augmented intelligence will take more from the field that I'll be working in as an output. So where does it make me better? Where does it replace areas where my current skills are, where I need to be reskilling? And this is why they call this age the great reskilling era, where you need to reskill a lot. You need to change the way that you're learning and learn new things to make you more valuable in the market and for you to be more productive. Now, if I look at my internal team, for example, the artificial intelligence team that I have, before, we used to look at it from a perspective that we have the developers and they will be doing the development. Now, with the artificial intelligence and GPT, I need to make sure that they know that they should not think that they're the muscles. They should be the brains, where they should take the critical decision making, do the critical decision making, and start keeping the intelligence, the knowledge of how development happens, not to do it, to understand the complexity in it. Once GitHub Copilot X comes natively into their systems with Microsoft. So this is where every single person that's working needs to question himself, understand what's changing in his field, and see where he should move further. So there's no specific answer for that will fit every single person. It depends on that person's field of work and how Abu Karim and Mr. Bashar said 30%, he said 200%. So why is that? Because it's a different area of work where that augmented intelligence makes you exponentially better. So this is what you should take back home and think. Where am I today? And how is this making me better? Is it making me better 10, 100 times? Or is it taking some areas of my field where I am in need of reskilling. So, Bukarim, I think from your vast experience in the working field within IT, if you have a specific area to tackle, that would be better, because I respect your knowledge in this.
I'll make a comment on this, but please,
Yeah.
Mr.
So I agree with what Abdullah said. But just think of it this way, right? Like, probably the application might remain the same, but the tools you use to complete the application would change over time. So I think if you just take 10 years back, when Tom Cruise was jumping out of the Burj Khalifa to take his, to shoot for his Ghost Protocol movie, it was a helicopter.
Always stories and movies, huh?
Yeah, lots of it, right? Now, those similar kinds of stuff could be done with a drone, right? So the perspective has changed. The tools to use to do the same thing has changed, right? It's like initially, just to get an entry-level job, the expectation now is what? To know Word, Excel, all these kind of basic stuff. The expectation probably in the next few months would be,
Prompt engineers.
Do you know how to use ChatGPT?
Do you know how to make prompts?
Do you know how to make prompts? Do you know how to use ChatGPT to do your work? So there would be change, and definitely people need to upskill, right? So I think all the people in your team are very good, excellent prompters. Promptology 101. Yeah, so that's basically what's going to happen. But it doesn't mean that just having the knowledge of prompting or promptology would actually take you to the next step. Because remember, if someone is doing that, there are 100 other people doing the same thing, right? So you need to be different. You need to be very creative how you're going to use this to bring in your solution.
No, I just wanted to say that we think everything with artificial intelligence and machine learning is involving only machines. That's not the case. There are thousands and hundreds of data labelers sitting and sifting through data to make this happen. There is human loop happening, feedback happening. There are people looking at, there are gatekeepers in Storybox's case, right? There are authors who know what it is. So there are still skill sets that are absolutely required and to be done by humans. And we need to prepare them for that.
I will be bold, and I'm optimistic. So we all grew up in the oil age, the combustion engine that we have. So we know cars and aeroplanes and things like that. 100 years ago, that all didn't exist. And people were using horses and animals to move around. And there was a study that for every horse and carriage, there were 5 people working. There was a vet and so 5 people were living off this. They had to clean the roads. There were 5 people living on this. Now, when we introduced the car and the combustion engine, these 5 jobs were lost or were changed or transformed. But reality is, we got into a very different economy, which is the oil economy. We started to have cars which needed mechanical engineers, drivers, aluminium smelters, refineries, logistics, petrol stations, streets, urban planning, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering. We transformed cities, we transformed the way we live. There are airports, train stations. All these things only happened in the last 100 years because of this revolution of the oil-driven economy that we have had. And I would argue for every one of these 5 jobs that we lost, there probably have been now 500 jobs that came, and I don't know what people will be calling themselves in the future, promptologists, transformationalists, whatever that is. But this data and information revolution is going to create thousands of new jobs, different skills, yeah? Driving a car used to be a very essential skill. I tell you, maybe my grandchildren will never have to have a driver's license because the cars will all be self-driving and it will all be a data environment and so on. So I am optimistic that this information revolution will create new possibilities and engagement opportunities far beyond what we have today. Just think of the oil and revolution that we've gone through in the last 100 years, what kind of jobs that we got created. We have time for 2 more questions, yeah?
I'll quickly take the first one. I guess just first of all, thank you very much. Always a very insightful and I would say intriguing conversation when we talk about augmented intelligence or artificial intelligence. The idea here is that, I mean, since November, I feel like we've been running on a very, very fast treadmill. You know, it's like every single day there are news of what's happening, resignations of people, Elon Musk warning the world is gonna, you know, and the risk and so on. And clearly that tells us that people are not necessarily fully aligned into what's happening, right? We're having a session almost every single day on AI, you know, whether in marketing, whether on technology and so on. All this to put a question here. Obviously, AI is the outcome out of the machine learning, is the outcome out of the deep learning that is happening as well. And reality is here, ChatGPT, as you just mentioned, is stopped at 2021, you know. But what we're seeing is the output. However, it's learning on a daily basis now, you know. And that's what we are feeling now, where people are starting to get really like scared, is because there was a mention, I forgot the exact wording, is that the real collectiveness of globalization is only going to show up now. Reason why is because this machine learning now suddenly started to get data from the whole world from November till now, or what have you, you know, since it started. And your stories that you're talking and you're helping with ChatGPT or whatever input you're getting on your restaurants will have a worldwide input into it, you know. And how would we be able to control that a bit more in terms of basically like control of information? Because what's happening now is that we are seeing it as we speak in a static and input as it is. But now as it evolves, that machine learning and the deep learning, which has a bit more of a logical responses now, how would we, as we develop our technology, as we develop our products, be able to contain it to what we really wanted to deliver versus what the whole world is putting in learning in? So it's a bit of a broad question, but it's the risks that we see because we're working on AI as we speak, and we don't know where things are going.
I think the answer is you cannot control it. So it's like somebody trying to control the internet. It will not be possible. But let's take a couple of questions and then we take them, please.
Yeah, I've been using ChatGPT for almost 3 months now. I'm a programmer, I'm a chartered accountant. So today itself I was asking a question like, you know, I prepare scripts on Python and I was just creating a documentation using ChatGPT. So initially the answer was what I wanted. I gave the same prompt and it gave me, you know, how the pressure cooker is working. So I was confused. I asked my wife, did you use ChatGPT? She said no. Then I don't know like how these hallucinations are, you know, happening and how it can be controlled. Because if I'm integrating this with, you know, my client application, and if my client, he will become a pressure cooker.
I'm sure somebody has been accessing your, and it might not be your wife, maybe somebody else, but somebody has been speaking to them about cooker. Any more questions?
Someone hungry.
Someone hungry, yes. Sorry, you.
Yeah, I got a mic. So I'm sorry about that. Now, I got a funny...
Let's be specific. Yeah?
Yeah, sure. So I got a funny and probably interesting question. So you mentioned that we, with the OpenAI, they had an iPhone moment. So, but we've seen quite a lot of iPad probably moments already with the Midjourney and other services. So what do you think would be the next iPad moments, like in the next half a year or in the next year? And just a small comment, I would like to connect to the speakers as well. And I'm the founder of Voicey. It's the AI tutor for kids. It's basically a Netflix for education where you get a personal tutor for your kid. And that's basically why I'm probably replacing Priya and Talal in 2023. But you guys, you got one moment in last year, so hopefully I'll get mine in this year. Yes, and also that was really engaging. Thank you very much. That was one of the best actually panel sessions I've attended. I've attended many. And I really also connected when you mentioned, Abdullah, that you're also from the civil engineering. So, and I'm from the civil engineering from the oil and gas era. But now from 2018, I actually joined the era, hopefully. So yeah, thank you. What would be the next iPad moment?
Yes, thank you. Last question from there. Yes, 2 questions, and then we'll open it up. But please, very concise, yeah?
Hi, my name is Makbul. I'm the director at the data firm. My question is to Abdullah. There must be huge amounts of data that you would have to, all the different silos that are there available while developing this. So how, to keep my question very precise, how did you manage doing that? Because if you're integrating generative AI, it has to sift through all these, a lot of garbage data that is there. So if you can just
Great question. The last question, then we give Abdullah.
Greetings, thank you for the presentation. My question is pretty short. The question is that with all the data, like you talked about a lot of integration with ChatGPT, and I'm asking how close are we of gathering the dark data, aka the unstructured data which we haven't come across yet for analytic purposes?
Great. Okay, Khalid, we'll come back.
Okay, so is it working? Yes. So basically, 2 questions that I could answer. So the first one with regards to the technology that we can see jumping through, just like you spoke about Midjourney. This is just early stages, Shape-E, SHAP-E. So this is creating 3D models. Now imagine everybody having access to creation of 3D models and 3D printers. So this will accelerate a lot in that field, and I believe the maturity of these 3D models is what we're waiting for it to go higher. Now, with regards to DIWA perspective, as I clearly stated, now DIWA has a lot of critical data with regards to the residents, so it's private data. We cannot put it on the cloud. And this is why we're currently in negotiations with Microsoft and other LLM providers in order to ensure that we can adopt cloud, because moving to cloud is something that is going to happen sooner or later. So how do you make sure that this movement to cloud is private and secure, so no data would be leaked? Now, what did we do today? So we can capitalize on this, so because there are quick wins and long-term strategies. And in DIWA, as I said, we understand which technologies that we have and products that we've purchased. We did not provide any kind of numbers, nothing from our systems that are confidential data. And we created a prompt that provides data from the large language model that I use in my private company. So I'm not sharing that private data. Does that answer the question? Because yes, we have an expansive amount of data, but we cannot integrate it to the cloud today.
The iPad moment?
Oh yeah, it would be in movies most likely. So it might take 5 to 10 years, but I guess each one of us would be watching the same movie but experiencing different things. And the storylines, the characters in the movie would all change based on what we are feeling. So to make us more engaged with the movie itself. So you would, basically the AI would be trained as much as possible so that you keep giving a rating of 8 and above in IMDb. So, about the pressure cooker question, I think someone has actually definitely access, because the way the model actually works is it has a context of tokens. So currently, let's say if you're on GPT 3.5, if you have API access to that, you have around 4,000 something tokens at the start. So in that, somebody might have put pressure cooker along with your accounting stuff which you were wanting to do, and that's.
She was not truthful, unfortunately. Because see, if you're using it directly on OpenAI, you have your chats.
Yeah.
So every chat is taken differently with whatever you've prompted it there, and it starts understanding different. If you used it on the playground, that's another story.
Yeah.
But at this time, maybe in the beginning of the launch of OpenAI, I would have believed that it would make sense, but still not the pressure cooker. It's something close, but somewhat diverged.
Yeah.
But this is completely different. So, and it relates to the previous text. Definitely, someone prompted, just go back to that textbook and scroll up, and then get your wife.
Any comments?
No, I think, no, I would want to see the iPad moment in the healthcare industry, especially, you know, every time I watch Good Doctor and see Dr. Sean, I don't know how many of you have watched Good Doctor. So Dr. Sean is able to visualize everything in 3D, the heart and brain and everything, and he's able to precisely pinpoint what's wrong, and magically a solution appears, right? Imagine AI being able to do that in terms of imaging and that kind of diagnosis. That is what I hope for as an iPad moment in healthcare industry.
I promised you one question, and then we close. Yes.
Yeah, so my question is, you already have built the infrastructure that you need, but how can other government entities reuse what you have already built and in a different sense, not to reinvent the wheel?
So mashallah,
Scale, scope.
Exactly.
it's what we've been speaking about. So I cannot disclose the answer, but you're speaking what we're thinking.
Good. Good.
But please use Zlang, which is Zwag's large analytical graph, instead of ChatGPT. Help us build. Now, if you follow me on LinkedIn, 1 second. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I go and talk to, put comments below everybody saying that, you know we are building something and we need to put in the governance and regulatory framework. Let Zwag be part of that discussion. You're building Falcon, LLM. So you would have thought about something in terms of regulation and governance. Make us also part of that discussion.
Yes. Sorry, one last thing with regards to the answer. So you mentioned how can DIWA transfer that to other government entities. And this is part of our strategy when we spoke about, remember 10X, Digital DIWA, our subsidiaries. And this is where we bring in the experience that DIWA has. The awards that DIWA got are because we strive for excellence based on McKinsey Digital Quotient. We're the #1 utility in the world and in the top 3 percentile in the digitally transformed organizations. So for us to be able to transfer that to other organizations, one is through dialogue between us and them and saying, okay, this is what we've done. We've done benchmarks actually in this area, and we've been approached a lot for benchmarks to support. But from an implementation aspect, this is where we have our digital subsidiaries to actually support the government entities and the private sector. And we are in many areas, and sometimes I said, fail fast. In many areas, we're early adopters, and we fail today. But our failures today, I'm not speaking about generative AI, but many things, of course, human beings fail. We fail, and if you look at the hype cycle, innovation trigger, peak of inflated expectation, trough of disillusionment. But innovations stay there. Sometimes the technology is not ready. So the day we failed, after 2 to 3 years, that same technology or idea that we tried to do is a huge success at that time, and it makes that much better because we failed at that time. So we have our subsidiaries, Digital DIWA, and this is how we plan to support the market, private or government.
Amazing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. This has been a wonderful panel and a wonderful audience and a great conversation. I'm sure it's going to carry on. So thanks for being here today, and thanks Abdullah, thanks Talal, thanks Priya, and thanks for everybody for making it such a great evening. And I'm sure we'll have time to network. Unfortunately, I have to be somewhere at 8:30, so I have to leave rather swiftly. But other than that, I think I don't know if the team's around and we can have a chat. Thank you.